If you are a hockey fan, you probably know by now that the World Cup of Hockey is about to start in the next couple of weeks as of this video. And when the World Cup of Hockey starts up in a couple weeks' time, this will be the first World Cup of Hockey since 2004. And since 2004, a lot has changed. And back when the last tournament happened, NHL players were still going to the Olympics. We did not have a season-long lockout to look back on in disgust. And we also never even had a thought about jersey advertisements. And with the World Cup of Hockey now in 2016, a lot has changed. And the truth is, I don't like it. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why I don't like the World Cup of Hockey. Now, the big issue that I have with the World Cup of Hockey, issue number one, my biggest issue, is the fact that it looks to me, from what the rumors have been, that the NHL is going to use this tournament to replace the Olympics. And by that I mean that the NHL wants to pull their players out of Olympic competition. Now, the thing about that is that even back in 2014, and even during the last NHL lockout in the 2012-13 season that canceled half of it, there was talk even back then about the NHL wanting to pull players out of the Olympics and not have them go to Sochi. Thankfully, that did not happen. But this time around, with the Winter Games going to be in South Korea in 2018, it sounds to me, at this point in time, that the NHL wants the World Cup of Hockey to come back to make up for their absence in the Olympic Games. And that also pisses me off because the Olympics are about the best players in the entire world representing their countries to play for the title of the best country in the world at the game of hockey. It's not about the best players that are not in the National Hockey League. The Winter Olympics are about, Winter Olympic hockey is about finding out which country has the best group of players in the entire world. And with the NHL's players not going to be there, it's not going to be about that anymore. It's going to lose that effect. And another thing that bothers me about the whole idea of the players not being in the Olympic Games from the NHL is that with the World Cup of Hockey, I guarantee that the competition level will be nowhere near as good as the Olympics. Because the Olympics are about playing for the title of the best country in the world, with the best players representing their countries from all over the world. For example, in Russia's case, their best superstars from the NHL and the KHL. And from countries like Finland, or even, for example, Sweden, like the best players that are from Sweden that play in the KHL, the Swedish Hockey League, and the National Hockey League, all coming together in one star-studded roster to play for the gold medal in the Winter Olympics. And for myself, it's frustrating. Because the World Cup of Hockey is just about playing to be the best group of players in a country that play in the NHL. It's not going to be about the best players in a country from all over the world playing for the gold medal. It's just about whoever's got the best country in the world with NHL players. And in my opinion, when you play for the Olympics, you are playing to find out who's the best in the world at a sport. With the World Cup of Hockey, all these players are a bunch of NHLers playing to find out who's the best country in the world with NHL players. It just won't be the same. And as much as I think that the idea of a Team Europe with players that are from countries such as Denmark and, for example, countries like Belarus or Norway that don't have teams in the World Cup of Hockey, as well as some players that are from countries like Russia that maybe are very, very good but weren't good enough to crack the Russian roster, get a chance to play for the Team Europe. It's a cool idea. And another cool idea is the idea of a Team North America with the best Canadian and American NHL players that are 23 years of age and younger that did not crack the rosters for Team USA and Team Canada in this upcoming tournament. It's a really cool idea. And truth is, on paper, I think it's a cool idea. And I'm curious to see how those two teams do. But the Olympics are about the best countries. And with the NHL having a Team Europe and a Team North America with a bunch of young stars like Connor McDavid, for example, it seems to me like it's more of an overglorified NHL tournament rather than a legitimate international competition. And I would even go one step further to argue that, you know what, this sounds more like an overglorified NHL All-Star tournament. And for myself, it's just not the same. And the competition level will be nowhere near as good as the Olympics. Because when you play in the Olympics, you're playing to be the best in the world. You have the best group of players in that entire country going all out to play for the title of the best country in the world at the game of hockey. You're not getting that with the World Cup of Hockey. And that's frustrating. And one other thing that pisses me off about the NHL possibly pulling their players out of the Olympics as a result of bringing this tournament back is that us North American hockey fans in Canada and the United States, our teams that represent our countries in the Winter Olympics will be nowhere near as good. Our chances of winning a medal go down dramatically, and our chances of winning the gold medal go down astronomically, in my opinion. And for example, with Team Canada not having NHL players in the next Olympics even, the best roster that they will probably have just enough skill to compete in the Spengler Cup. And that's frustrating. And to add salt to the wound, do you really think that Russia is going to say no and pull their players in the KHL out of Olympic competition? Abso-freaking-lutely not. And does anybody think that the Swedish Hockey League is going to say no to their players going to the Olympics? No way. Especially the KHL. Because Russia is so driven to win gold in hockey. And it's even surprised me to see just how much Russia loves hockey. And do you think Russia wants to hinder their chances at a gold medal in Olympic hockey? Give your head a shake. Like, seriously. The KHL will not pull their players from Olympic competition. And the Russians are smart. And if the NHL does this, then the Russians and the other European countries with good teams deserve to win. They absolutely deserve to win, in my opinion. Because the problem with the NHL is that they see their players as insurance policies. Right now the big issue is that the NHL wants the International Olympic Committee and the IHF to cover the players' salaries for the 2-week period that they're not in the NHL representing their countries in the Olympics. And on top of that, the NHL wants the IHF to cover the NHL's players' expenses in the event that they get injured. And on top of that, the NHL claims that they are very concerned about their superstars, the Crosbys, Ovechkins, and McDavids of the NHL getting injured during the Olympics. Which, if I was an owner of an NHL franchise and I had a superstar player, and that player just happened to be selected to an Olympic roster, I would be legitimately concerned. I would be extremely concerned about them getting injured and not being able to play for my team to finish the season and to hopefully make a playoff run, a deep run that could even hopefully get my team a Stanley Cup and my fans a Stanley Cup. Like, just think about it. Like, if you were the owner of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and your team and the Penguins were red hot all season long, and then the Olympics come and both Malkin and Crosby get injured. And then after the Olympics, the Penguins fall apart and they don't even crack a playoff spot. As an owner, I would be extremely concerned about a scenario like that because it's very possible. But what pisses me off is two things. Number one, the Winter Olympics is a 2-week tournament once every 4 years. So the risk of injury isn't all that great, even though it is still there. Don't get me wrong, it is absolutely still there. But 2 weeks every 4 years, the odds of injury aren't as bad as the NHL makes it out to be. But what ultimately pisses me off about this is that I find that the NHL still having a 2-week tournament of their own called the World Cup of Hockey is very hypocritical. It's extremely hypocritical of the NHL because if the NHL opted not to send their players to the Olympics and to not have their players take part in a 2-week tournament due to concerns over injury, I understand it. But when you're pulling your players out of the Olympics and having them participate in a 2-week tournament that you've created, I find it extremely hypocritical on the NHL's part. And that really pisses me off as a hockey fan and as a Canadian. Because once the NHL pulls their players out of the Olympics, both Team Canada and the American hockey teams in the Olympics down the road will not have anywhere near the star power that they've had since they've been going to the Olympic Games since the 1998 Games in Nagano, Japan, which is very frustrating. And if you're an American hockey fan, you should be equally pissed off about this. And I don't blame you if you are. I mean, as a Canadian, not only do I want Canada to have the best shot possible, but out of respect for the American teams and the American hockey fans out there, I want them to have the best teams possible participating in the Olympics as well. Because the Olympics is about the best of the best, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the way it should always be. And it just really pisses me off about the fact that the NHL is probably going to use this tournament to opt out of the Olympics, to opt out of sending their players to the Winter Olympics. So the next thing that really pisses me off is about the advertisements on the jerseys. Now, for the World Cup, there's only going to be an advertisement on the one shoulder patch of every jersey, which is not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it still sucks. Number one, advertisements should not be on jerseys, And number 2, the NHL makes $4.4 billion a season, approximately. They make more than enough money that they do not need advertisements on any of their jerseys, and I don't care what Gary Bettman or any of the NHL's owners have got to say about this matter. I honestly don't. I think it's pure greed. Speaking of greed, by pulling the NHL's players out of the Olympics and only having the World Cup of Hockey, the NHL will gain all of the ticket and merchandise sales from their own event instead of the IOC and IIHF as a result of the Winter Olympic Games. Now, on top of all that, this conversation about advertisements, there is a very good chance that these ads on these jerseys could one day eventually make their way to the NHL on a permanent basis. And I guarantee that it will probably happen, or pardon me, I can almost guarantee that this will most likely happen in our lifetimes. Over the next 20 years, I'd put my money on the NHL having ads on all of their jerseys if I were a betting man. And it sucks. It absolutely sucks. So, and the NHL seems to be in denial about it because we all know that the NHL has talked about ads on their jerseys. And the NHL's even admitted that they don't want to put advertisements on their jerseys until one of the other major professional sports leagues in North America has done so. And guess what? The NBA will be putting ads on their jerseys. This has already been confirmed, and I believe it's starting in the 2017-18 season. And I feel so bad for any of you basketball fans out there watching this video. It's not fair. And guess what? The NBA makes way more money than the NHL does, especially in the United States. Why the hell do they need more money from advertisements? They already make more than enough. It's so frustrating. And, I mean, Gary Bettman has said recently that we have no interest in putting ads on the jerseys and we intend to honor the tradition of the hockey sweater. Well, guess what? In terms of Gary Bettman, I trust his word about as far as I could throw him. Because I don't believe him. The NHL wants those extra millions of dollars that they can get from advertisements on the jerseys. And I think it's a joke. They make so much money already, and they want to make more from advertisements. In a lot of NHL cities, for a lot of NHL teams, they charge an arm and a leg for tickets, especially in Canada. Especially in places like Toronto, Montreal, and New York with the Rangers. Places like those. Chicago, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary. The ticket prices are so expensive. And I hear that Winnipeg is also extremely expensive too. Like, their tickets aren't cheap. And they already make so much money from those. So here's where that kind of ties into what I'm going to say next. See, if the NHL was going to put jersey ads on their jerseys so that they did not have to charge as much money for tickets and merchandise, such as jerseys, guess what? That would be a more feasible excuse to do it. And I think if it was done in a way that would take some of the weight off of the prices of the tickets and the merchandise, it wouldn't be so bad. But do you really think the NHL is going to start cutting ticket prices and merchandise? Absolutely not. It's not happening. If the NHL tells you that, I can almost guarantee that they're full of crap. Because, it's just a total crock that they want to put ads on all of their jerseys, and if they tell you that they don't, I'm telling you that they do. I don't believe the NHL, and as I just said, I trust Bettman as far as I can throw the man. And it's just so frustrating, and it just makes me mad. Like, come on. And guess what? If the NHL's worried about making more money, it kills me to play devil's advocate, but maybe it's time to cut the life support on some of the struggling franchises like Arizona, Florida, and even in recent years, Carolina. Maybe it's time to relocate one of those teams, or maybe it's even time to start contracting a team or two. Seriously. If you guys are worried about making more money and you've got franchises losing money, maybe it's time to get rid of those franchises. And I feel really bad saying that because I feel legitimately bad for the good fans in those cities that are losing money. And it sucks. It sucks for the fans in Arizona, Florida, and Carolina that legitimately care and are diehard fans of their teams. And they're in cities that have fan bases that unfortunately don't care as much as they do, and don't care as much as Canadian cities do, or northern U.S. cities like the Chicagos, the Rangers, the Pittsburghs, the Philadelphias, the Detroits of the NHL. It sucks. It's a very crappy situation, but unfortunately, the thing is, if they're worried about money, maybe it's time to cut some of these franchises out. And I hate saying that. But also, another thing I want to talk about is the jerseys of the World Cup as well. I don't like them. And seeing the 3 stripes, Adidas trademark 3 stripes on the sides of every jersey is a bad sign. If that isn't a subtle advertisement, I don't know what is. And it sucks. And to be honest, for the most part, I am not impressed with the World Cup of Hockey jerseys. And if that's what Adidas is going to bring into the NHL, I'm not excited. And I'm not looking forward to this new era of jerseys being made by Adidas. Especially after seeing the right down the middle, half darker royal blue and half navy blue Team Europe jersey, as well as the half white, half blue shoulder yoke on the Czech Republic's red jersey. If that's what we're going to be seeing in the NHL in the next few years, holy crap, that's gonna suck. And if you're a Canadian Football League fan like myself, you probably have already noticed that some of the looks in the CFL have gone downhill since Adidas has taken over. And I'm not going to lie, I am legitimately concerned. And I don't even want that type of change to happen to the NHL because I still think that's too much. And if that's the way the NHL's jerseys are going to go on top of potentially jersey ads, which I think is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, look the hell out. Because things are going to go really downhill starting in 2017. And it kills me to say that. But anyways, that's why I honestly do not like the World Cup of Hockey. And I just hope that come 2018, we will be talking about the fact that the NHL has thankfully sent their players to compete in the next Olympic Games. Or pardon me, the next Winter Olympic Games. Anyways, that's it for this video, and until next time, take care and bye for now.